Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to introduce my daughter, Allie. Allie is actually getting her master's degree at the seminary, studying to become a deacon in the church here in the next year or two. So glad to have Allie with me this evening as we do this vlog. You know, this week's gospel lesson is Jesus feeding the 5,000. And we have this tendency when we read that story to marvel at the miracle of feeding the 5,000 with so little food, and yet we miss the context of what leads up to that story. You see, Jesus has actually just been told of the beheading and death of John the Baptist, and he actually was trying to get away from the crowds initially to go and grieve and to pray and to think a little bit. And yet the crowds follow him everywhere that he goes. He cannot get any time alone to grieve. Instead of being frustrated by this, he shows incredible care and compassion for them, even amidst his emotions and his mourning. And so he teaches, and then he decides to feed them. So we constantly seek to both role model and to find such incredible care and compassion in our lives today. Allie is going to share with you a couple stories that she has experienced at the Rocky Boy Indian Reservation out in Montana that kind of resemble that same concept of care and compassion. Allie?
One story that comes to mind, Rocky Boy this week has held a special place in my heart for many years. We were out there, I think the last time 10 years ago or so now. This summer was a planned trip to return, and it was going to be this week, so it holds a special place in my heart, especially now. But one story that comes to my mind is that of John Mitchell. John is one of the elders of the tribe, and every morning when we were on the reservation, he would walk from one end of the reservation to the church to meet us every morning, and he couldn't give us an exact time of when he would show up. It was just in the morning, and that was because on his couple-mile walk, John would stop and talk to every person that he met on the road. Every person that he met on his walk. And it wasn't just the "Hi, how are ya? Keep going and passing." It was the "Hi, how are ya? Let's stop and have a conversation." So John showed compassion to everybody that he met in that way.
Yeah, he was on his way to us to do work with us, and still he would stop everything to literally share with those people. And like you said, I mean, it wasn't just "how are you," it was "how are you? I actually would like to hear the answer to this question." So he did a few times say to me, "I'll see you in the morning," and I would ask what time, and he would say somewhere between 4 a.m. and noon. That was his way of saying, "I'm going to stop and talk to people, you know that, so I'll be there when I get there." So yeah, John was a special person. You had a second story you wanted to share as well, I believe.
Yeah. In relation to caring for the earth and showing compassion to the earth, one of the lessons that the groups are told and taught when they spend their time on the reservation is how to care for the earth. And it's the idea that if you were to take something from the earth, you give back to the earth, or you offer something back to the earth. This was an interesting lesson for me to learn my first trip. In the sense that we would go to take sage or something from the battlegrounds or around the reservation, and we always had to have a packet of seeds, a bottle of water, something with us that we would in turn return to the earth. So not just showing compassion for each other, but showing compassion for the earth and showing compassion for nature as well.
Yeah, that's one of those great concepts that if you take something, and you will, I mean, especially on the reservation, food, things like that come from the earth, but you can't take that from the earth without giving back to the earth somehow. Plant a seed in return for that which you have taken, or water the plant that has given you that food, borne that fruit for you, so to speak. And the idea being that even the earth is God's living creation, that God poured God's heart and soul and sweat and tears into the creation. We should show the same compassion for the creation that we show for one another. Those are great examples. One of the things I remember from being on the reservation myself is talking to some of the elders and hearing them talk about things like why the eagle feather is so important to them. And it's the idea that the eagle, of all the creatures of the earth, soars the highest and comes closest to the heavens. And therefore you revere the eagle because it has the opportunity to literally touch the heavens, which we don't get to do. So some beautiful examples in Native American culture and theology of care and compassion. Like I said, this week that's what we're talking about in the gospel. Jesus' care and compassion for each and every one of the people that were gathered that day. Even though he was grieving, he was going to show them love, and he was going to find a way to reach out to them and make them feel blessed, even as he was hurting in that moment. Some beautiful thoughts. We are blessed. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.
Amen.